Hi, Bloody Recapped here. Today I'm going to explain a thriller movie, Antebellum. Keep your eyes open and stay focused. 19th century, the Confederate States of America. A time when black slavery still existed. Behind the beautiful mansion, we are shown all the beauties of those times, how women respected the military, and black people lived separately from everyone else. Behind the lodges, Eli resists the guards, and his wife Omara can no longer watch her husband being tortured and decides to flee. But Captain Jasper follows her, and she is caught with a lasso. She begs to be killed, and the commander puts her request into action. Eli is knocked out and Omara's body is dragged across the ground. This slave plantation is owned by the Confederates, and they can do the most terrible things here and go unpunished. In the barn in the field, a huge bonfire is seen where the body of the dead is burned. At night a new slave is brought into the house. Her name is Eden, but when she does not tell her name to the general, she gets hit with a belt. But she still hesitates to tell him her name, for which he stamps her and threatens to personally burn her in the barn. He asks to make her chicken, promising to be back in time for lunch tomorrow, and Eden barely rises to watch the burning barn. 6 weeks later, the women are picking cotton in a field, but they hear thunder. Although there is no hint of rain in the sky, they are distracted, which displeases the commander, and he makes them sing. And when one of the men whispers that it is time to run, he immediately gets a shotgun to the ribs. An arrogant woman gallops by, worth remembering. She will still play her part in the future. At home, Eden greases the hinges of the door, when suddenly Eli knocks on her door and asks her to try to escape again. Suddenly, Eden is called by the commander-in-chief. The newcomers are brought into the camp and are examined by the landlady, giving one of the girls the name Julia for her beauty. Jasper dictates the rules of their plantation: no talking without permission. When everyone is working, everyone whistles. If disobeyed will be very painful, and to do everything with a smile. The captain gives the command to raise the flag. The general will arrive tomorrow. Eden takes Julia away, whom she immediately tells to shut up, and Jasper wants to kiss the mistress of the house, but she does not want to at this hour. At home, Eden probes the painted wall and there is a knock on the door. She steps on certain planks. Eli turns up there, who asks when it is time to escape, but she just closes the door in front of him. There's another knock. It turns out to be Julia. Eden drags her into the house. Julia tells him she's pregnant and begs him to get her out of here. Eden asks her to wait for better times, or she'll get the same stigma as her. Then Julia doesn't hold back and insults Eden, for which she immediately flies out the door. At night, while the troops are eating dinner, a general arrives. He brings everyone up to speed on the fact that their troops are winning and makes a victory speech, saying that they can rest tonight, and that these sapphires will fulfill their every wish. Jasper notices that at the table, one of the soldiers can't tell what the girl wants, and asks her to prepare the cabin after dinner. A soldier named Daniel will come to her to serve. At home, Julia thanks Daniel for complimenting her, and when she says he doesn't have to rape her, that he's special, the boy suddenly snaps and beats the girl for talking to him without his permission. He accidentally punches her in the stomach and leaves after apologizing. The next morning in the field, when Julia sees blood on her skirt, she starts screaming, and Eli, wanting to distract Jasper, calls him a bastard. But he comes to the girls anyway, letting Eden and Julia go and clean themselves up. And Jasper goes back to Eli, asking if he misses his girl. After a couple of sharp looks, he instructs him to clean the ashes out of the barn, where he finds his wife's cross. Tears come to his eyes, and when he realizes it is her ashes, he becomes hysterical. At night, the general rapes Eden, soon wishing her good night. In the middle of the night, the phone rings. We are transported to the modern world with Veronica Hanley and her husband Nick, where she is a successful writer and black rights activist. Her daughter Candy shows up and immediately drags her daddy upstairs because he's getting her ready for school today. In the bathroom, Veronica is not branded like Eden. In the kitchen, they watch the news where Veronica speaks, and a little later she has a video conference with a girl named Elizabeth, who is also racist in this world and speaks liberally to Veronica. She compliments her on her lipstick and tells Veronica that she's not from the publication, but just looking for talent. When her daughter walks by, Elizabeth asks her to show her off, saying they'll be friends with her daughter, but Veronica doesn't like that, so she says goodbye to Elizabeth, and she says they'll see each other at a conference Veronica is flying into. After the call is over, she washes her lipstick and her husband says goodbye to her before she travels. At the hotel, Veronica is doing yoga with her trainer, but their workout is interrupted by her friend Tom, who arrives. After a little gossip, she walks her friend out, because she already has to go to rehearsal. As she walks away from the door, the doorbell rings again. It turns out to be the receptionist who has brought her flowers, signed "I can't wait for you to come home." On the first floor, Veronica wants to register a table for tonight at 8 with the concierge, but notices also some condescending attitude as with Elizabeth. A woman in an orange dress sneaks into Veronica's room, telling the governess that she forgot to bring her key. In the room, she uses her lipstick and near her neck, she sees a brooch with a drawing of the branding that the general put on Eden's back. Veronica performs on stage against discrimination against blacks, where she is applauded by the entire audience. After the show, Tom invites her to dinner, where they have to party, but Veronica has a 6 a.m. flight tomorrow. In the elevator, Veronica is approached by a strange girl who asks her to keep quiet or they will punish her. Veronica goes into the room and the girl is watching her from across the hallway. In the evening, Veronica goes to dinner with Sarah and Tom, where she texts her husband, thanking him for the bouquet, but it turns out it's not him, saying it's probably one of the suitors. The girls leave the car, where they almost get hit by a horse. At the restaurant, the girls are seated at a table near the service entrance, which clearly does not suit the girls, and they sit in the center of the hall. Veronica notices that the guy at the bar has been keeping an eye on them all evening. Then a waiter comes over and hands over the cocktails from the man at the bar. The girlfriend gives him her number and lets him go, and the girls discuss how handsome he was and that Veronica is unhappy with the hotel service. They haven't even cleaned once, but Sarah tells her that the service is impeccable. 2 Uber cars pull up to the restaurant. Veronica asks the driver to turn down the music and asks to take her to the hotel. A little later, Veronica gets a call from her Uber driver, but Veronica says she's already in the car and hangs up while the music is still playing loudly in the car. Elizabeth finds herself behind the wheel, who thinks she's great with that lipstick, too, and Veronica starts choking from the back seats while her girlfriends have fun in the passing car. Veronica passes out against the car window. Eden wakes up to the sound of the telephone. The general goes out to his horse and picks up the phone, calling all black people a plague and that he is sick of seeing Veronica's husband on TV. And Eden overhears this. She goes back to bed on planks that don't creak, and the general smokes a cigarette in the house and says he won't let anyone separate them. In the morning, she lubricates the locks again and practices stepping on the planks, but messes up and decides to scream out with a blanket in her mouth. In the field, the captain notices that Julia is late again and instructs Eden to bring her here quickly, but she finds Julia hanging in the lodge. The women see a plane flying in the sky in the field, and Eden promises they will escape tonight. At night she wakes up and checks to see if the general is asleep. She finds her daughter Veronica's drawing scrawled under the table, and she uses acrobatics to step on boards that don't make a creaking sound. She gets out and finds Eli. They take the general's phone, but when a pair of warders come around the corner they drop the phone and hide around the corner, which of course the wardens find. They hear a noise in the field, where Daniel goes to check to see if anyone is there, but sees nothing, though Eli and Eden are sitting in the next row. Daniel moonlights, and the other warden leaves him alone. He takes a drag on his e-cigarette and is about to take a leak. From behind, Eli calls out to him in a whisper and knocks him out. The guy asks me to promise him that if he doesn't get out, everyone will know about this place. It turns out the phone only has coverage at the cabin. They call 911, but the connection is bad. They say they have been kidnapped and are on the plantation, but the operator hangs up and the phone is blocked. Now they need a Face ID to unlock it, because that's the only way she can reset the coordinates. She enters the house, where the captain immediately grabs her and starts beating her. Eli fails to stand up for her and is cut through his chest with an axe. Eden smacks him in the face with a teapot and runs out into the street. He heads for her, where from around the corner she immediately stabs him with her sword, saying her name is Veronica. He collapses on the doorstep, and Eden takes the phone in the house and unlocks it and calls Nick. She tells him in tears that she has been kidnapped. She asks him to call the police right away and she will reset the coordinates. But upon hearing her daughter's voice, the connection is lost. She still manages to send the geolocation, then returns to the house to say goodbye to the guy, calling him the professor. She tears down a flag nearby and decides to drag the captain into the barn to burn it. He promises her that they can't be beaten. They are nowhere and everywhere. But when she lights the torch, the captain and the warder appear behind her. She says that the general is wounded in the barn, and when they run in there, she closes the door and asks them to be quiet. The barn goes up in flames, they burn alive, and Veronica walks away epically. She rides away in her uniform on her horse while a semi-automatic rifle shoots at her from behind. Veronica's horse jumps over an obstacle, while the warden's horse fails, but then Elizabeth appears and chases after her, but Veronica manages to hide in a field. Elizabeth shoots at where the noise is coming from, telling her in passing how her father came up with the whole thing. But he only wanted Veronica, and she chose the rest of the slaves herself. She told her father that the risks were not worth it, but he did not listen to her, and now the woman has to deal with men's problems as usual. A horse comes out from behind a tree and a lasso flies around Elizabeth's neck and she falls off the horse. They have a fight in which Elizabeth injures Veronica with a knife, but she still manages to win, and she beats Elizabeth to take all her anger out on her. Suddenly the shouts of the warders can be heard, and she jumps on her horse and pulls Elizabeth, who soon crashes into a statue on which it is written that he is Robert Edward Lee, the great military leader of the Confederate States of America, who stood for the welfare of soldiers and was an advocate of slavery and racism. She gallops past the battlefield, where a little later a sign is seen that it is antebellum Louisiana's Civil War Reconstructionist premier park. All kinds of payment systems are accepted, and anyone disturbing the peace on this plantation will be subject to prosecution. Owner Blake Denton. The police pull up, and people film the escaped Veronica. She is happy about her escape, and a plane flies in the sky. After the subtitles, we are shown a scene of the FBI searching the field, interviewing the victims, and a backhoe demolishing the antebellum sign. Support the channel by subscribing, like, and on notifications, because with it you will be the first to know about the video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.